Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Ana Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome back to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ana Lara. Today, I have a guest. His name is James Monte, and he's a top pharmaceutical rep with IBSA. He specialized in thyroid function and endocrine optimization and has a passion for helping others. He's a dedicated family man, a husband with 3 children, ages 16, 7, and 4, and he's been a type 1 diabetic for more than 35 years. In his free time, he coaches his son's baseball team, and he is the cheer dad for his youngest. He has extensive knowledge of the mental health space, as he was diagnosed with depression in 2011 and was on several depression medications throughout the years. In August of 2024, he quit his medications cold turkey and is thriving without the use of pharmaceutical drugs. Please help me welcome James. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. I invited you on the podcast for many different reasons. We naturally have great conversations.
I agree.
Now, what our audience should know, and you already know, is that I friend everyone who walks into my office. Most of them.
Okay. That's fair.
I do. I don't care if it's a sales representative or the UPS guy. I treat everyone with kindness and respect because I know what it feels like to be on the sales end of things, from my past experiences. And I just don't believe in being mean, cold, and nasty to people. So I always want to be welcoming.
It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love coming in to see you.
Yeah, we enjoy, me and my assistant, we enjoy when you come over. We have conversations.
I know. It usually is not even geared towards the product. It just winds up happening organically, which is really nice. It's a nice break from always being on the clinical side of things to just kind of come in and be able to sit with you and just kind of talk. It's really nice. It's talk really, really nice.
Life and experiences you've had.
Kids, everything.
Kids. One of the things, James, that I was very impressed with you is being a man, being a married man with family, how open you were to be open and transparent about who you are and what your experiences have been in life. And we've talked a lot about mental health and physical health and many other things. And this episode I want to dedicate to men's health. You know the top reason that men are driven to go see their doctor? You don't know?
No.
It blows my mind that men will wait to address health issues, and they wait to go see a doctor until they have sexual dysfunction. So the moment
that doesn't surprise me at all.
The moment they have, erectile dysfunction, that's when they're like, something's wrong.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But I have also had, many conversations with men, and their top reasons of not going to the doctor, which I understand. Most of them will say, I don't like doctors. And the other reason they say they won't go see a doctor is, I don't want to know what's going on.
Okay. Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. But the sad part of that, James, is that men will live life not seeing a doctor, not getting help, not working on the prevention side. And then when they do have to see a doctor, they're forced to go.
Sure.
They end up in the emergency rooms, having to do invasive therapies.
Absolutely.
But at that point, you have to do this forever.
Well, I think that one of the issues is that generationally, men have always been told, basically, suck it up, deal with it. You'll figure it out on your own. Rub some dirt in it. You're going to be okay. And so there's this stigma of getting help, right? And I don't subscribe to that because for me, I don't want to wait I don't want to wait until it's too late, until I need those invasive procedures. So I've been very big for years on, as soon as something is going on, addressing it. And if I can't do it on my own, my next step is always to get professional help, which is basically what I've done over the years, is not waited. And I think also being diabetic, my knowledge of waiting for things to exacerbate is critical.
Yeah.
So I don't have that luxury of waiting. I have to act. And so that's really from a medical side, and then also just from a personal side. Professionals are there to help, and men should not be embarrassed to go and get help. I mean, it literally could be the difference between life and death.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your experience. When were you diagnosed with type 1 diabetes?
Sure. So I think I was 2 when I got diagnosed, 2, 3, 4, like that. Very, very young, though. My father was in the pharmaceutical space very, very, very early on. He worked at a drugstore. This is back in Brooklyn. Mm. And over the years, he saw a lot of the same symptoms come in. Kids were coming in, they were constantly thirsty, always had ear infections or some type of virus, rapid mood swings, hunger all the time, wetting the bed. And on a vacation, my dad started noticing that I was exhibiting those symptoms and immediately just put 2 and 2 together. We left the vacation, flew home, went to Cedars-Sinai, and then I remember for hours getting poked and prodded until they came back with the diagnosis that I was diabetic.
Wow. And that's because that's oftentimes, an assumption that people make is, they just don't know. Sure. There's all these symptoms. And I tell people signs and symptoms is a way that your physical body is alerting that something is off inside. And, times are changing where people are they're more aware of what signs and symptoms are. But back then, you're still pretty young, but even back then, it wasn't something. So the fact that your dad was able to put like these things together,
yeah.
It was life-saving for you, because
Absolutely.
Had you gone any longer without realizing you had type 1 diabetes, which is different, by the way, guys. Type 1 diabetes, you're not making insulin. Because you're probably looking at him and he's like, he doesn't look diabetic. And that's the issue, is that people assume that diabetics are overweight. And there's 2 types. There's type 1 and type 2. So type 1, oftentimes the pancreas is not making enough insulin. So that could be, detrimental over time. Where type 2 diabetes, which is what we call the one that you can reverse, is usually induced by diet and lifestyle.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But this is not something that you did.
I'm not reversing this.
Yeah.
This is not going away. I like you just said, and I appreciate the compliment. I do try and take very good care of myself. But to what I said earlier about my dad recognizing the signs and symptoms, it wasn't something that he was willing to wait for. And I'm glad that he didn't wait, because it, again, could have been the difference between life and death. So for me, getting the professional help early was pivotal to my life. To talk about the type 1 and type 2, I get that comment quite a bit. Well, you don't look like you're diabetic. Well, I think I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But there definitely is a misconception where people seem to think that you have to look a certain way to have something, and that's just not the case.
Yeah. Are people surprised when you share that you're type 1 diabetic?
I think they are,
yeah.
Because I think that there is such a misconception in society and in the community that diabetics are overweight and they don't take care of themselves. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
It's not the case for me. It's not the case for a lot of people. It is the case for some, and that's, I understand where people come from with that, but I think that needs to change.
Yeah. Because type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune. There's different causes of it, and there's still a lot more research to really do on this, right? Just like with anything, we really don't fully understand exactly, perfectly how the body works and what causes these things, but there are certain viruses that can affect the pancreas, and then starts to affect the production of insulin, and there's autoimmune conditions that can affect the function of the pancreas, so that it starts to attack the beta cells of the pancreas, and that's where the insulin is made. And so that's why a person with type 1 diabetes might not be able to make enough insulin. Some people make some, not enough, and some people don't make any at all.
My pancreas is just taking up space in my body right now.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm fine with it.
Space for you.
I'm fine with it.
Thank God for medical interventions,
I've had this for so long that it's just become second. It's part of my life. I don't know anything different. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's just maintaining it, which is relatively easy.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I had wanted to write a book, and the book was going to be Diabetes is a Disease, Not a Disability. So I see a lot of people say, well, I can't do that. I can't do that because I'm diabetic. But that's just not the case. I've done everything.
You should write that book.
I don't know if I could, but I mean...
I think you can.
Maybe.
I believe in you.
I appreciate that.
Like a little engine that could.
I appreciate that.
I think they could.
It's not a it's not something that is debilitating. It's only debilitating if you let it evolve or devolve into that. Diabetes is very manageable, and with technology and having a continuous glucose monitor that I have on, having the insulin pumps that have all this great technology, and it just keeps evolving. So it's not something that I think at one point was a death sentence. I think now with all of the medical interventions and the technology that we have, it's not as scary as it used to be. Not at all. And my sister and I, who's also diabetic, and so is my mother.
Are they type 1 diabetic also?
Also type 1. So we're all type fun.
Type fun.
So we used to go to a diabetes camp. And you're surrounded by counselors and med staff that are diabetic. And you're surrounded by kids who are also diabetic. And you think that you're the only person in the world that has this disease where you're not supposed to eat sugar and you have to count carbs and you've got to take shots. And then you realize there's millions of people that have this exact same situation. And they're out there and they're having fun and they're playing sports and they're jumping out of planes and they're playing professional sports and everything. So it's not a disability. Or it's really not. It's a disability if you let it be.
If you let it be, it's your mindset, your perception of that thing is not going to overpower.
And how you control
your
it.
Life, yeah.
You know, if you're an uncontrolled diabetic, you're probably going to be overweight. You're not going to want to do things. You're going to have vascular issues. You could have edema. There's all these myriad of other things that come from uncontrolled diabetes, but controlled diabetes, you shouldn't have a problem doing anything.
You still work out.
Oh, yeah.
You manage how you're eating, working out,
all
living
those
life.
Things.
Yeah.
I'm a normal person. I just have to take shots. That's it.
Different types of shots.
Definitely different types of shots.
Yeah. Gotta correct that, So I'm like, oh, he's taking shots. Good. Well, growing up, I mean, was it difficult for you to manage that?
When I was really young, and I think that this is probably fair to say on a holistic level, the entire diabetic community. When you're a young child, your parents are maintaining your diabetes. They're managing it for you. As I got older, it became more manageable because the responsibility could then be put on me to check my sugar, to take the correct insulin, to eat the right things. But early on, I don't think that I had a big say in it. I think it was my parents controlling it until, of course, I was old enough to really grasp what I needed to do, which took some time. Yeah. I mean, it definitely took some time before I think my parents were comfortable with me kind of taking over the disease state. But I think it also came as a relief to them that it was no longer something that they had to really helicopter over me. Of course, as a parent, they're still very concerned with making sure my sugar's in range and I'm having the right snacks. And, there's some scary moments in there. Blood sugars drop in the middle of the night, and this was before continuous glucose monitors and alarms. So there were several occasions of me passing out and waking up to the fire department standing over me or paramedics injecting me with D50 and glucagon. Yeah. But as time has gone on and I've gotten a little bit older and wiser, I think, it becomes more manageable.
Yeah. It is no joke when your blood sugar drops.
No, it's not.
You are dying. It feels terrible. Unfortunately, it happened to me when I was pregnant with my oldest, and I could never forget that feeling. It is a terrible feeling.
It's panic.
It is. And that's your nervous system is alerting. Something's wrong. We don't have enough glucose in the brain. You're dying. And people can go into a diabetic coma and not make it out of that. So it is a very serious thing. What are some things that you would, so say there's many men out there. I'll tell you this though, I will disclose, just in my practice, which does not depict the whole world, right? Or the country.
Sure.
But I have seen more men, especially after COVID, start taking their health more serious. That fear of like, I don't want this virus to take me out really shifted many men, not just to take care of themselves physically, but mentally. And we're going to have you on the next episode, and we're going to talk about men's mental health. But on this one for physical, wellness and well-being, if men, where do men start to feel safe to move in that direction of finding the right, I always say you got to find the right doctor. I get that. They're afraid of being judged.
Sure.
Like from a male perspective, what do you think men tend to fear about going in to see a doctor?
I think it goes back to what I first said, is that there's a stigma that if you go and seek professional help, you can't handle it on your own. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is a level of onus that men have to want to be able to handle things on their own. I don't need anybody's help. I can do it on my own. I find myself doing it with projects around the house. My wife gets mad at me because it's jig-rigging things together, but I think I can do it on my own until I can't, and then I need to call in professionals. I think that the body of men in general feel very much this way. I can handle it on my own until I can't. So maybe they're getting outside influence. Maybe it's their significant other that's telling them, why don't we go to the gym? Why don't we start a fitness program? Why don't we start eating better? And that's great. I think sometimes it takes an outside factor to really make you flip that switch where I need to start doing something different. Maybe you go to a doctor and you get your labs back and they say, your LDL is super high and you have high cholesterol. Now we want to put you on a statin, or, your TSH is really high. We need to get you on a hypothyroid medication. I think sometimes those things factor into it. I think other times guys just realize on their own, I got to do something different. Maybe they wake up in the morning, they look at themselves in the mirror and they're 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight and they don't like the way that they look anymore. Maybe they're fresh off of a breakup. Yeah. What's the best way to overcome, that feeling of loss or rejection? Let me get in the best shape of my life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it takes that.
You've said something that I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say, but I guess men are designed to figure it out. I mean, you're the head of the house. You're the leader.
You're supposed to be.
Even if women don't like it. I mean, there's just men and women are designed different, right? And we're not going to get into the whole gender identity, none of that. This is just, real talk about men are wired to figure it out. Like, I don't think I would want to be married to someone who can't figure it out. But there is a fine line of when you've done things on your own to a point, like you said, I've done this, I try to do this on my own, and now I just can't figure it out. I'm not a man, and maybe because I grew up around boys a lot, my brothers, I feel the same way. I feel like I can figure it out.
Sure.
I got this, I can figure it out. But once I can't figure it out, then I look for someone that can help me, right? But you can be stubborn in that, get stuck in that and be stubborn that you don't need help from anyone. I got this I'll push through. But what happens, unfortunately, like I said, I see this too often, is that as men get into these older ages, 50, 60, 70 years old, even younger than that, they start to develop serious chronic conditions. Now their kidneys are failing. Now you need dialysis. You know, you're having serious heart issues. Now you're having to go see the cardiologist. And so if you don't want to work with those doctors, if you don't want to take those medications, then take it before. One of the things that I like in working with men in health is that I can be straightforward and direct with them, and they're not going to be sensitive about it either. Because women are different, sure. Right? But I can use a lot of analogies because I grew up around my brothers a lot, being on cars and things like that. So I always use car analogies, and I always say, the fatigue, the weight gain, that you know not able to sleep, all of these things that you're experiencing, these signs and symptoms that you're experiencing, it's like the red engine light in your car turning on. You wouldn't avoid that, would you?
Some people would.
Some people would.
Some people put a piece of tape over it.
And then they just keep driving their car, and then their car breaks down. Now they have a $5,000, $7,000, $8,000 bill to fix that car.
The cost to repair is always more than the cost to maintain.
Yes.
If there is one thing that is taken away from this, it is the cost of repair is always going to be more expensive than the cost of maintenance. Always.
Always. One of the things that I tell patients, and both men and women, young, old, it doesn't matter. You pay the price now or you pay it later with interest.
Absolutely.
So you might as well make the changes now. Start eating well. Move your body. Yeah. Sleep well. Get rid of the vices, things like that. Those are things that you could do at home for free, on your own. But the problem is that many don't.
No.
I remember having this Hispanic male, James, in my clinic about 3 years ago. He hadn't been to a doctor in years. He owned his own painting company, painting houses. And he's like, man, I'm really worn out. I cannot function. He's been pushing. He can't push. He can't do it anymore. So finally the wife made him come in. He's there, very Mexican, male, chauvinist, you know what. And I tell him, okay, well, here's the blood work, do the blood work. He comes back. He's like stage 4 kidney disease, super diabetic, type 2, just all these issues, right? And so I go through the diet, and he discloses to me, I'm going through like a diet recall, like, what are you eating throughout the day? He is eating 20 tortillas per meal. That is 60 tortillas per meal. I calculated the carbs for him, and I'm like, this is a lot. This is why you're diabetic. This and all the other stuff, right? So I told him, look, if you want to live, this is how you're going to eat. You can still eat 2 tortillas per meal, but not 20. So you got to add more protein. So I started telling him how he had to eat, what he had to do, what he had to take, natural things to take. And I told him, and it's up to you. If you want to live, because you still have a 8-year-old daughter, you want to see grow up and all of that, then if you can't do it for you, do it for her. But this is what it is. Yeah. You can reverse this. So I'm giving you hope that you can reverse this, but you got to come into the change. And he said, he was funny. He made me laugh. He said, for the first time in my life, I'm going to listen to a woman. And I said, I'm like, so you haven't been listening to your wife? I said, do you realize if you die, she's the one who's impacted most? When you go through a health crisis, she's the one impacted the most.
100%.
Her and your daughter. So I'll take that as a compliment, but let's get on board. He made the changes. Hemoglobin A1C was dropping, sugars were normalizing, kidney function was increasing. And the problem with men like this is that once he saw progress, he stopped and fell off the face of the earth. It didn't help that it was the holidays either, so I couldn't get in contact with him. And I told him, you are steps away from dialysis. If you don't do this, you will be on dialysis.
Terrible.
Time went by. Like maybe 9 months later, I get a call from him. Hey, it's me. I'm in the hospital. I'm getting dialysis. Is there anything you could do to help me? I'm like,
that ship has sailed, my friend.
you know, it's like a heart. Sure. My heart is just punctured with a knife because I don't want to see people get to that point, men or women.
Yeah.
And there's that stubbornness in men that, you know, it is a stubbornness.
Sometimes it, like I said, it takes those outside forces to push you to make a change. Some guys are very good at doing it on their own for whatever their reasons are. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of reasons why somebody would self-change. Sometimes, though, it does take a catastrophic event for you to realize what I'm doing is not working. And sometimes at that point, it's too late.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's too late.
What are some key things that men should consider, like whether it's changing the mindset around their health or things they can start doing health-wise for themselves? What are things you do?
That's a great question. I think it starts with activity. And I'll preface this by saying that this is something that I do. These are not the beliefs of anybody else. This is just me. I think that activity and getting moving is really helpful. The next show, when we talk about men's mental health, this will be a big factor in that. But getting your body moving, lifting weight, has shown to significantly increase your life expectancy. Cardio is wonderful. Fasting is great. I don't do that. I can't really do that. But exercise, I think, is pivotal. Exercise plays a major role in your health, in your mental health, in your even spiritual health.
Yeah.
So being active, moving around, lifting weight is essential. I think supplementation is really, really good. I'm really, really big on Gary Brecka right now. So shout out to Gary Brecka and your hydrogen water and your Baja Gold salt. So I think supplementation is really important too. One of the things that I noticed was one of the products that I sell is B12 and D3. Mm-hmm. And I was suffering from some really, really bad migraines. And as soon as I started supplementing with B12, D3, AG1, or any of the superfood, super greens, I haven't had a migraine in a long time. So supplementation, moving around, obviously diet plays a big role in health. Not everybody can do the ultra organic shopping at Sprouts, shopping at Whole Paycheck, Whole Foods. Yeah. And it's no diss to them, but everything that is healthy typically, again, speaking in generalities, is a lot more expensive. Yeah. But I think that there's ways around that. You can cut certain things out of your diet in lieu of putting things into it. So you can cut out super sugary foods. You can cut out high density carbs. You can cut out all of the really, really, really high saturated fat foods. Mm-hmm. And I think that all of these wind up playing a role. If you can afford the organic, the really healthy stuff, my family has pretty much made a switch to a lot of the non-chemical component foods. And my kids seem to feel better. My kids are acting differently. I'll have to get back to you on exactly what it was that we cut out, but I think it was either folic acid or folic nitrate. I forget what the compound was, but we were told that by taking it out, the kids were going to respond differently. Yeah. And I have to say, shout out to my wife. You were absolutely right.
The wife is always right.
My wife is always right. My kids have started acting differently. The sleep regression that was really big for my son, who's 7, is not really the case anymore. He's sleeping better. Cognitively, he's doing a lot better. He understands deeper and in a more mature context. So food, moving around, supplementation, I think that those are all like the key things. And then on top of that, I think social. we need a community. Women have a lot, and again, I don't want to be chauvinistic, and I don't want to be
say it,
but it seems as though women have a lot more connectedness than men do.
Yeah.
And so we're usually kind of by ourselves. And I think it's important to have a network of people that you can call up. Hey, bud, just want to tell you I love you.
Yeah.
Hey, man, how you doing today? What's new? What's happening? When you are in a community of people, or you're surrounded by your friends, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Men need that.
Yeah.
Guys need to have a community around them. We need to have things that we can do as guys that bring us together. That sense of community really, really, really bolsters mental health and physical health.
I agree. I think that's one of the big differences between men and women is like women naturally, we want community, and I do see more men creating community. I think it's still something that needs to be like almost like given permission.
Sure.
Like it's okay. And my parents, they grew up in Mexico in a very, very small farm community. And I remember the first time I went to visit, I was 6 years old. And every year in the summer we would visit. And I remember you see community and men there. So I don't think it's a male, it's like a male, like not, it's okay not for men to do that. I think it's a cultural thing in our country because
100%.
They called it the four corners. And, men would work their fields, and at the end of the day in the evening, they would meet at that corner, the four corners, and they would sit around and they would talk. And it was just men. And it was known, like that was a community little hub. They would meet there and talk. And you will arrive whenever you wanted to, you'd leave whenever you wanted to. That was their circle. And you're talking about, I'm like, there's something very different in this country. I've traveled to other countries, Peru. I've traveled to a lot of like Central South America, and some of the communities that are not in the city, they're like in the more smaller towns. There's a lot of community that happens in these cultures that we don't have that here. It's always work, and we just consume our time with things that don't really feed into us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And there is something about having that community, that person or people. I say at least have one person that you can turn to, that you can talk, that's outside of your relationship, 1,000%. That is needed, and it's okay.
100%.
Yeah, I would prefer my husband to have someone to talk to and, process whatever it is, instead of just feeling like he doesn't have any friends or a social circle.
1,000%. Yeah. I had a community college course with a guy, and I'll make a long story very short. I've been friends with my buddy Dennis for more than 20 years. Dennis is a leader in the community, but more specifically, he's a leader in men's awareness and kind of that community feel. So Dennis started something called Real Talk Men's Club. It's all guys, all walks of life. I believe that there's probably 20 or 30 members. We have members that are in different countries.
Oh, wow.
We're all part of a big group chat, and we'll just chat with each other. Nice. We're just checking in. More than half of us have never met the other half. We don't even know where they live. Mm-hmm. But it's a community of guys that, at least locally, meet up, try to, about once a month. We just shoot the breeze.
Yeah.
Just hanging out, just surrounded by each other. No preconceived notion. It's just us with other guys. We could talk about any issues that we want to. But it's really, really nice to have that sense of community, even in a really, really small, confined group of, let's say, 10 to 12. You still feel like, just feels really nice.
Yeah. I think the misconception sometimes with people is that they feel like community is a large group. And actually, the larger it is, the more the quiet people tend to be just there.
They stay quiet.
They stay quiet. And the point of a small group, even if it's one or two people, it's that it makes you speak. you're just like, you're going to share, you're going to talk about something.
Yeah.
And I agree. You know, you mentioned earlier how a lot of it is culturally, how, you know, and I know this kind of touches on the mental health, and it's hard to separate the two, though. Physical health, mental health, it's all one body. Mm-hmm. And so whatever's going on physically can impact our mental health. So if you're not eating well, right, because you're eating a lot of sugar and crappy food, it's going to make you feel icky. And, you know, you start cleaning up the diet, you're going to feel better. Because now the brain has the right food and the body has the right food to help you feel optimal. Moving your body, that's medicine in itself. It's not even about physical appearance. It is mental health for me. It is spiritual. It just makes you feel like you emotionally, mentally detox. And whether you work out in the morning or in the evening, I tell people, figure out what works for you.
Sure.
Don't worry about what anyone else is doing, because not everyone's going to be able to work out at 4 or 5 in the morning. It just doesn't work for everyone. Find out what works for you.
Sure.
Don't compare yourself to other people. Just those two things can really shift men physically and mentally and emotionally. You know what's really sad, James, that I'm really concerned is I see people of all ages, from newborns to geriatrics, men and women. I purposely set up my practice because I didn't want to just work with women. I didn't just want to work with one population. I wanted to work with the whole family. And what's really concerning to me, and I see this in both genders, but really young men, their testosterone levels are dangerously low compared to, some men in their 40s and 50s might have lower testosterone, but it's concerning when you have a 20-year-old with testosterone of a 50 or 60-year-old. But then you have the 50-year-old that has naturally better testosterone than the 20-year-old. And once again, it's the diet. It's what they're eating. They're eating junk. Yeah. They're not moving. Men have more muscle. You need more protein. You need activity, physical exertion to maintain your muscle mass. And so when those testosterone levels start to drop and estrogen comes up in men, you don't feel well. So sometimes your mental health issue is really a physiological issue. Change the diet, move your body, balance out, your hormones. You'll feel better. That it could be just that. It could be just your hormones.
It's all interconnected, right? To what you just said. It's the mental health plays into the physical plays into the mental. When your mental health is good, right? When you're happy, when you're in a good mood, you're more likely to want to go out and do things. Conversely, if you're physically active, you tend to feel better post your workout.
Absolutely.
And again, you're in a good mental headspace. You're feeling good. You're ready to tackle the day. So whether you can get it in the morning or you can get it in the evening, it doesn't need to be some 2-3 hour,
no.
You're not training for the Ironman, or maybe you are, and God bless you for doing that. But 30, 40 minutes of just moving around is really good. If you can lift heavy weight in that 30 or 40 minutes, do it.
Yeah.
Your joints are going to thank you later in life. There's so much scientific data that supports lifting heavy things long term. You're going to live longer. It's just going to happen.
Fasting and lifting weights has the same effect on the body when it comes to anti-aging. So what's happening at the cellular level, it's the same thing. So I like to eat food, so I would rather lift heavy.
I agree. I'm on that same boat.
There's a lot of intermittent fasting. There's a time and place for that, but I'm not typically unless it's for spiritual reasons.
Anecdotally, lifting fasted versus lifting with a carb load, it's night and day different. It shouldn't even be, it's not even apples to apples.
Nope.
You're comparing rocks to fruit.
And this is the other thing, is that when people lift heavy, they start to realize how important what they're eating, how much they're eating, what they're eating,
Absolutely.
How much it matters. Because you cannot, especially as women, we cannot lift if we don't have enough protein. you'll feel weak. We don't have the same muscle mass. We don't have testosterone the way men do. And that gives us strength.
Yeah.
But you're right. As you get older, your body will thank you for doing this right now. And there is no, it's never too late. So if someone is 50, 60, 70 years old, I see many people that are 60, 70, and they start their fitness journey, and wow, what a transformation. I think one thing that I really want to share with men is to not feel embarrassed or ashamed of where they're at, because that fear, that shame, that embarrassment, you're going to get stuck in not taking that next step.
1000%.
Oftentimes, you're your own worst critic. You're judging yourself. I do tell people, find the right doctor. If you find the right doctor, they're not going to make you feel bad. And the moment they make you feel bad, guess what?
That's the wrong doctor.
That's the wrong doctor, and you can fire them. So if you go in with that mindset that if my interaction with this doctor is not kind and respectful, I can fire them. I just won't come back. Yeah. And just go find another one until you find the person. And there's nothing wrong in you communicating with the doctor what you're looking for. You might have to teach them.
As a sales professional, I don't want to say I've taught, because that would be inaccurate. I've shared my experience in pushing back against providers. Sometimes at least in the sales world, and it all ties together, trust me.
Yeah.
We see an MD, right? We see an NMD, and we think, oh, this person knows more than I do. And so we blindly trust what they say. But that's not always the case. In the healthcare system that we live in, your practice is very different. Yeah. But generally, providers have about 7 minutes, 8 minutes with a patient. So they go in, we listen to what they say, we trust what they're going to prescribe to us, and that's it, and then we leave. But we need to be able to push back. We're in an age of technology where we can do a lot of our own research and go in there with an informed decision. I call it kind of suggestive medicine, where you go in and you tell your provider, hey, I think I might be hypothyroid. Hey, I think I might be diabetic. This is what I'm looking for. Can you run this test on me? Sometimes a provider's not thinking that route, or they come in there and they're so slammed, and you present them with symptoms A, B, and C. Well, A, B, and C mirrors this disease state. Let's treat you for that.
Yeah.
We don't always have to listen to what the provider says. And I'm not trying to shoot us in the foot here, but I think that there needs to be a responsibility in the population to do a little bit of research. I'll give you an example. My dad has had multiple hip surgeries, but my dad does all the research ahead of time. So when he goes in to see the providers, he's already talking their language. He's already saying, can you aspirate the SI joint? Can you go in and do this? Are we going to go posterior? Are we going to go lateral? Are we going to go medial? Are we going to go anterior? And I think that providers oftentimes appreciate an informed population.
Yeah.
I think it also takes some of the guesswork and the clinical work out of what you have to do. If you come in and somebody says, here's A, B, and C, here's why I think it's A, B, and C, you may look at it and say, oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I don't need to run additional testing. Yeah. You've already showed me that these symptoms align with what I had originally thought. Mm-hmm. So I think that part of it comes down to us pushing back on the provider. They're not always going to be the right fit for you.
And they're not always going to have the answers.
Sure.
Because MDs have such a short time to be with people, and sometimes there's assumptions made. One of the things that I really encourage people, especially through this podcast, the purpose of this podcast is for people to advocate for themselves. Before I take on a patient, I interview them, and I always tell them how I work with them, and let them know that they're in the driver's seat of their healthcare, not me. They're responsible for the decision making and how they want to proceed. I am guiding them. My job is to listen, take their history, and make based on what's presenting, lab work, all that, make suggestions off of that. But at the end of the day, it is their choice. And the reason I do that is because I remember being on the other side as a patient, not being given the options. So we naturopaths do this in general. We present options and let the person pick for themselves, because then they feel heard, respected, empowered. And I'll tell them, if there's something, and you got to be careful because there's so much on social media, but if there's something you did research, not because you saw a TikTok, but you did some research and you're like, you think that might resonate with your situation, you want to get tested, I am all for it. When people come to my practice and they present options of testing or looking into that, they're going to know more than I do about their body, James. I'm not in their body. I'm not experiencing the symptoms that they're experiencing.
Sure.
So my job is to listen, be curious, and say, yes, this would be a good thing to do, or let's wait to do that. But either way, if it's something that makes sense, let's do it. It is going to save me the time. They're already coming in thinking that this might be something to look into. Let's do it. What's the big deal of running a full thyroid panel on people?
There's no harm in doing it.
Back in 2006, it was like wrestling with the doctor for me. I couldn't get them to do more than a TSH. But that was many years ago. And things have changed and evolved.
Sure.
Technology, there's way more information on thyroid health now than ever before.
Agreed.
And there's information on a lot of things. But I agree. I think that you don't believe everything anybody. The best advice that one of my older brothers gave me when I was like in kindergarten, I think I was in kindergarten, he said, don't believe everything that people tell you and everything you read.
Sure.
You can question things. Think for yourself.
100%.
Advocate.
100%.
And if you don't know, ask. The same thing, like if there's questions you have on your lab work, on the diagnosis you got, ask the doctor. And if they don't have time for you in that visit, then say, okay, I'll make another appointment so we can make time for that conversation. And they will do it. I see that more doctors are more open and flexible to doing that. As we get here to wrapping up this episode, is there any takeaways that you want to share with men that might be watching this, right? And they know they need to change. They're scared. What would be the loving, kind nudge that they need?
The loving, kind
Or maybe you
nudge.
just need to punch them in the face. Get out there.
Some of them may need a punch in the face.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest takeaway is your body. You know what you're experiencing. If you're not feeling right and whatever you're trying to do to mitigate that feeling is still not working, stop wasting time. Go and seek professional help. There is nothing wrong with getting professional help. They're professionals for a reason. You specialize in these things. If your foot got broken, you would not just stand around waiting for it to heal itself. You would go and you would seek out an orthopedic surgeon. The same thing holds true to every other facet of a man's body. If we're not feeling right, go and get help. Again, it goes back to what we were saying before. The cost of repair is always going to be more expensive than the cost of maintenance. Go and get your blood work done. Eat healthy. Drink a lot of water. But don't wait for the problem to be so bad that you're going to have to go and get those invasive procedures done.
Yeah.
So I would say if you recognize something early on, attack it early on. It's like life. Don't wait until it's too late.
Yeah. Don't wait till it's too late. I like that. Well, I'm going to be tagging some past episodes on the pillars of health and nutrition, exercise, stress management, just the importance of the pillars of health and how you can do that for free. I mean, it's free education. So if there's men or women watching this video and you feel like your husband, your partner should hear this conversation, please share this video with him. And I think, James, I believe there was a special shout out
There is a special shout out for any doctors, physicians, PAs, MAs out there that are single and successful. I'd like to shout out my sister Gina. You can find her on Instagram at Lil, L-I-L _ Miss, M-I-S-S, Monte, M-O-N-T-E. She's beautiful, she is talented, she is single, and she is ready for you.
Oh, wow.
Shameless plug.
There you go, sis. You're going to get hit up. Well, thank you, James. We're going to continue this conversation in men's mental health in the next episode. So you want to stay tuned for that. Until next time, be blessed, guys. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raíces, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.